I don't exactly remember how old I was when this story took place. All I know is that I was really young. I was left home by myself then, at an age that I think most people would nowadays think is way too young to leave a child home alone. But with my family, it really was not that out of the unusual. I didn't live in an area that most people would consider living out in the country. We were in a house that was maybe 20 or so minutes away from the nearest town, and once you got off the asphalt road, you were maybe about 10 minutes driving on the dirt road before you came to our house. It wasn't really that far out, but it was set in a hilly area, and our house was at the bottom of a hill. Although I don't recall exactly how old I was when this story takes place, I do recall that I was somewhere around 10 years old or something like that. I was also an only child, which is one of the reasons I was home alone when this happened. The other reason is that my parents, who were still really young because they had me when they were young as well, were going out to a bar that night. They did this every now and then, and I was always left by myself whenever they did. Plus, this was about 50 years ago, so their plan on how to keep me safe at home was really out of date. Nowadays, and if I leave the house, people and I would tend to make it look like they were home in order to keep people from breaking in or something. My parents did the exact opposite. They put me in bed and they made sure the lights were all out to make it look like no one was home in order to try and make me safe. My room was on the second floor of the old house that we lived in. It was very old, and I think it was supposed to have been an attic and not a bedroom or a second floor initially. It wasn't very big and only had 2 small windows in it, one in the front and the back of the house. I remember it was snowing before my parents left to go out and do their bar hopping. It began snowing harder while they were gone. Per normal, I was already in bed before they left. I was not supposed to answer the phone, go to the door, or even get up for any reason other than going to the bathroom. Even then, I was not supposed to turn on any lights but the bathroom light, and the bathroom had no window. I stayed up a little bit later than I normally would have, because I liked watching the snow fall out the window. It was not always easy to see because there were no lights at all except a really dim lantern that was situated at the end of the driveway. But I could watch the snow fall from there, and it was very pleasing to watch. I knew my parents would not be home until very late, and it was also likely, knowing how long they would go out and do their bar hopping in the past, that they might not even be back until tomorrow at some point. I finally went to bed feeling pretty content. I woke up to a light shining in through the window of my attic room. It was only for a few moments, but it did wake me up, and as soon as I woke up, the light immediately went out. Although I was a bit disoriented from just being woken up, I was able to quickly figure out that it was from headlights. I got up slowly and went over to the window. Looking down on the front yard, I noticed a car that I had never seen before in my life, and getting out of the car was someone I had also never seen before either. Although it was difficult to make them out in the darkness, I didn't exactly know a lot of adults in the first place anyway, so it was pretty easy to figure out. Then, I heard the unmistakable sound of a window breaking. Panic set in really quickly as I realized someone was breaking into our house. My parents' car was not out in the driveway, and I'm sure it would have been too early for them to have been home anyway. I heard someone opening the front door and coming into the house. They must have broken one of the 3 little windows that were on the front door. I didn't know what to do at first. I heard the man moving downstairs. Although this room was sort of like an attic, it had a thin row of set stairs leading up to it. It wasn't like one of those attics that had a pull-down set of stairs. The intruder was likely to find them and come up there. Not only that, but our house was very old and very creaky. I was worried that any movement I made would alert whoever was downstairs. Fearing for my life, I realized the only hiding place I had would be underneath my bed. But even though it was just a few footfalls away, I had to move very, very slowly in order to get there. Step by step, I started moving over to my bed. Once or twice, I did hear a creaking sound, and it frightened me each time, but I was able to get over to my bed without seeming to have caught the attention of the robber. I managed to crouch down and slip myself underneath the bed, and then I rolled completely under. Being against the floor, I was able to hear what was going on downstairs a lot better. The guy was obviously going through our belongings, and not exactly being the quietest about doing it. The noises bugged me, but not nearly as bad as the creaking I heard when I knew that he had found the staircase and was now making his way up. From under my bed, my heart began pounding in my ears when I noticed a pair of boots come into my view. I was too scared to even breathe at this point. I did my best to hold still and try not to make any noise at all. I watched the boots walk around the room. The drawers of my dresser opened and closed, and I watched as some of my things landed on the floor. I didn't really care about any of that, as long as I didn't get caught. I held my breath, tried not to cry, and waited. After what seemed like forever, finally the boots walked back toward the staircase and went down them. I was able to breathe again, but I still didn't dare to move. I heard more noises downstairs for a while, but couldn't move a muscle until I heard the front door close and heard the car outside running. I got out from under the bed in time to get to the window and see the car pulling out of the driveway. Then I quickly ran downstairs to call the police. Although the guy was now gone, he had just ransacked our home, and I was scared he might come back. The police came over and looked over the house. They asked me where my parents were, and I told them they were out bar hopping. The police went and took me over to my grandmother's house, so I wouldn't have to spend the night in the house alone and terrified. I always thought that had been very, very nice of them. It was scary for a long time sleeping in that house after what happened. My parents would still go out on their all-night bar adventures, but fortunately after my experience, they always dropped me off at my grandmother's house before ever doing so. This happened when I was 13 years old. We lived on top of a hill pretty far from civilization. I liked it really. It was fun to have acres and acres to travel on and explore. I had lived in the South when I was younger, so when we lived in Ohio, I experienced a different winter than usual. I had never ever seen snow before. First time, it was such an interesting experience that I enjoyed it quite a bit. But it was absolutely nothing like the ice storm. Now, first of all, I didn't even know that was a thing. It was amazing to watch, but what was mostly amazing was what it was like afterward. Everything was covered in inches of ice. It was truly a winter wonderland. I watched the sun glittering off every surface. It was so beautiful I just had to go out and explore. I mean, it was like a totally different world. It was hard walking, and I almost slipped immediately and fell on the porch. I went and got my cleats so I would not be stumbling around. We lived on nearly an acre of property that was fenced off from the woods, but I didn't want to really go out there. I wanted to go out to the end of our very long driveway and walk down the hill on the gravel road. It was very neat. It was like an ice coating for everything. It was hard walking down the road, and the hill that we lived on was pretty high. It was not too steep, though, so I was able to get down the hill without falling down. Once I made it down to the bottom of the hill, I walked over to a fence when I felt myself about to slip. I started walking pretty close to the side of the road after that. Then, right at the bottom, the strangest thing happened to me. I slipped big time and tried to grab the fence that was on the side of the road. The fence, just like everything else, was completely covered in ice. My hand came down on the iced fence, which was so sharp it sliced most of the way through the palm of my hand. I fell on the ground. It was surreal at first. The pain didn't come on me immediately, which in retrospect I figured was because of the cold of the ice. I'm not sure, but the whole thing was a big bloody mess. I didn't know how long I was sitting in the ditch on the side of the road, just trying to process what was going on. When I finally really looked at my hand, shock and terror set in. I don't really want to explain in too much detail about what it looked like, but it had very nearly been cleanly sliced off. It looked like the only thing that was holding my hand together was the skin and a little bit of muscle. It was so bloody, it was hard to tell, but it really was holding on by a thread. I tried getting up. I fell a couple of times due to the ice, and not being able to use my hand to pull myself up. After a very difficult time, I was finally able to make it to my feet. Then I had to solve the problem of not knowing exactly what to do to protect my hand as I was trying to get back to my house. I was bleeding and terrified. I may have been in shock, I don't know, but I tried cradling my hand some way and walking back up the slippery hill. I absolutely can't even tell you what I was thinking because I was so alarmed by what happened. With a great deal of struggle, and maybe a whole lot of luck, I made it up to the driveway of my house. I had been lucky to not have fallen, because if I had, I would have braced my fall with my hands, and I don't even want to imagine what would have happened. I staggered down the long driveway, and then into the house. If I thought my initial reaction was bad, my mom's was downright terrifying when I heard it. My father heard the screams, and when he saw my hand, he grabbed the first aid kit and applied some bandages and other things to keep my hand together and try and control the bleeding. I don't want to explain the process any more than that because even after all these years, it still makes me wince as I'm telling this. Suffice to say, he got me as prepared as he could and then drove me straight to the hospital. The drive was long and agonizing. Not only were we far away from the hospital, but the roads were making it take even longer to get there. I did my best to just fight through the pain, which had gotten severe, knowing that it would eventually be over. In the end, they were able to save my hand, but it took a lot of work to do. Even now, I'm clenching my fist, thinking of this story as I'm retelling it. After then, I've been scared to death of going out and doing much of anything right after an ice storm, but I guess that shouldn't be too surprising. I headed out to my local mall a few days ago, determined to do some serious Christmas shopping. As a bit of a reference, I'm only 5'5", and I'm quite thin. I have a shaggy pixie cut, and prefer the comfort of big t-shirts and skinny jeans most of the time. I get mistaken a lot for a 12-year-old boy more than I would like to admit. Sorry if this gets a bit long. So there I was, Christmas list in hand and ready to take this thing on like a champ. I had more money than I've had for Christmas in a long time, and I was really excited to get some excellent gifts for my best friend and my parents. I was walking along the ground floor, headed for the stairs, when I passed this lady who was giving out some hand lotions. She had a few small packets in her hand, and a larger bottle on a little table beside where she stood. Okay, cool, I think to myself. Grab a sweet-ass pocket lotion and keep going. I didn't want to be rude and just keep walking, so I took the lotion and smiled in a sort of, "Thanks for the lotion, lady," kind of way. Big mistake. Before I even had the opportunity to start moving again, this chick grabs my wrist and lets out a squeal that would hurt a banshee's ears. "You keep your nails natural?" Hell freaking yeah, I do. I clean for a living, so there's not much point in getting them done unless I'm going somewhere special. "Sure," I said, and tried to wrench myself free. To my dismay, this lady had a hold on me like a hungry anaconda, and I knew I'd be stuck listening to her sales pitch. I was a bit confused as to why she picked me out of the entire crowd of people walking, especially because the boots and studded jacket usually scared off potential creeps. Probably friends too, but hey. Unfortunately, all the leather and studs in the world did nothing for my baby face, so I probably still seemed like easy prey for this asshole. She's all, "Look how great this makes your hands and nails," while all I could think of was why she thought I cared. My hands are scarred and calloused from various do-it-yourself mishaps and years of guitar practice, so there isn't much that can be done for them at this point. I attempted a getaway by letting her know that I wasn't interested and that I had to get back to shopping before it got too late. She batted her eyelashes and said that, lucky me, since I was so cute, she would give me an entire set for the low price of $20 if I just followed her to go get it from her stand upstairs. I had just come from the top floor of the mall, since there were exits and entrances on both floors, and I knew for a fact that the only kiosk up there was an eyebrow threading shop. Like hell, I was going anywhere beside GameStop to get my little brother a new game for Christmas, so I declined. She tightened her hold and repeated the sales pitch, this time asking me weird questions in between trying to convince me to buy this mystery lotion. How old are you? 19. Where do you go to school? I graduated. Do you have a sister? No. Where's your boyfriend? I don't have one. I tried again to tell her nicely because I hate hurting people's feelings, to just fuck right off and let me get back to Christmas shopping. She stared me dead in my eyes and said, "Are you alone?" A million little alarms went off in my head, and I lied to her and told her I was there with my dad. She looked all around the mall and asked me, "Which one is he?" I pointed out the most intimidating-looking man I could find, and she launched right back into trying to sell me this product at warp speed, like she was in some kind of huge hurry. I told her again, more firmly this time, that I was not spending any money on her hand lotion. She started walking off in a random direction, still holding my wrist tight, and insisted that I come with her to see more of the products she was selling, because surely I would want something, despite the fact that every word out of my mouth said the complete opposite. Finally, I yanked my arm free and stood my ground, prepared to defend myself if she tried grabbing me again. "I'm not buying anything from you. I need to get back to shopping." Before I could even turn away, she asked me what I used to wash my face. A bit caught off guard, I told her, and she began launching a barrage of insults at me. "You're too pale, your skin is too dry, and my personal favorite, it looks like a shedding lizard." Ouch, that hurt. I didn't put any stock into her petty attempts to insult me. People had complimented me on my skin before, and I was fine with the way I looked either way. I walked away instead of throwing anything back at her, and headed upstairs to finish shopping. Before I left the mall that night, I marched my dry lizard skin right over to the nearest mall cop and informed him that he had some rude-ass people working in the mall. I wasn't sure who else to tell, so I wasn't surprised to see him scrunch up his face in confusion. I expected him to direct me to a sort of complaints desk or something similar, but nothing could have prepared me for what he said next. "Miss, we don't sell that here." Well, shit. I described the woman and told him what brand of lotion she had tried to get me to purchase, but he only shook his head and told me that the vendor for that particular brand had not been coming around that mall for years. On my way back to the parking lot, I passed the spot where she had originally confronted me. There was no woman, no lotion samples, no vendor's cart. I later asked my cousin, who worked in the mall, if there was anyone selling that lotion there. She said no, and a quick peek at the mall's online directory confirmed it. I hate to think of what would have happened if I had ended up following her. So, like many people on here, I've been lurking on here for quite a while now. After reading many interesting and horrifying stories, I decided to share one of my own. Names in this particular story had been changed. It was December, and Christmas was right around the corner. It was late, at around 3 a.m. or so. I was sick at the time, so I was on a strange sleep schedule. I was a bit bored and none of my friends were online, so I decided to venture into a little site called Omegle. I went on there quite often at the time, mainly to troll people, but tonight I decided to have some actual conversations with the people on there. Big mistake. I decided to talk to some people under the anime tag, because people on there seem generally cool for the most part. Of course, there's always horny teenagers looking for a girlfriend, no matter what tag you're on. I eventually find someone who isn't a bot, and who doesn't immediately ask ASL, meaning age, sex, and location. We'll call her Azula. Azula asked me what my favorite anime is, and I jokingly said Fat Albert. I knew I said I didn't want to troll, but I just couldn't help myself. A conversation ensued after that about anime and such, and she seemed like a genuinely decent person. She then asked me for my email. I gave her my spam account, knowing that there was no real harm in giving that one out. So we continue our chat in Google Plus Hangout. She starts to ask to video chat. I decline, telling her that I don't even voice chat with my real-life friends, but she keeps on persisting, and I keep telling her no. I was starting to think that she was actually some pedophile. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable revealing my face to anyone online, and I didn't really want to voice chat. She then said she'll send me a picture of her face if I send her a picture of mine, so I let her send hers first. I did a reverse image search on multiple sites to see if the photo was fake, but nothing came up anywhere, so I knew that it wasn't. Reluctantly, I took a picture of myself and sent it to her. I figured it couldn't do any harm. She kept on persisting to video chat, and I kept telling her no. Then I turned my computer off because I was tired and a bit annoyed. I didn't really think much about it, but I was planning on blocking her the next day. A day later, I got on my computer and was just about to block her. As soon as I got on, she messaged me immediately. At this point, I thought she was either stalking me or just had no life and was at her computer all day. I went ahead and talked to her. She apologized for being pushy and explained that she didn't have many friends and just wanted to get to know me. I said it was fine. We talked about anime as well as video games and such. A pretty normal conversation for me. The next day, we talk again. She wanted to video chat, but I told her that I'd settle for a voice chat, since I did that all the time. Once we were in the voice call, she kept asking me to turn my camera on. Her camera was already on, so at this point I was sure she wasn't just some 40-year-old man. I told her I didn't feel comfortable doing that. She said that she wanted me to do a video chat to make sure I wasn't some 40-year-old pedophile. My voice was quite deep at the time, so I understood why. Again, reluctantly, I turned my camera on. After that, everything seemed to be okay. I could tell that there was something wrong, but I figured she was just socially awkward. After that, things were okay for a few weeks, but one day she randomly told me that she had a crush on me. I told her that I don't do online relationships, and she got very depressed after that. She kept saying how every guy, 5 total I believe, has turned her down, and she got really sad about it. I didn't really know what to do at this point. I felt really bad for her because I knew how it felt to be rejected, and how awkward it is to stay friends with them afterwards. I made one of the dumbest mistakes of my life. I said that I actually did like her back. Nowadays, there's no way in hell I would have done any of this, but I was only 14 at the time and I was young and dumb, so just keep that in mind. I was basically in a fake, fabricated online relationship at this point. I didn't consider her my girlfriend, and only one of my friends, who we'll call Eric, ever knew about her existence. In fact, one day he was in a group chat with us. That's when things started to get a bit strange. In the group chat, we all had a decent conversation, but it got weird after I left. Azula started asking Eric lots of personal questions about me. Eric tried to give her the runaround, telling her that she should be asking me about this stuff. She was asking questions like what my last name was, where I lived. Eric didn't tell me about this, but I saw it in the group chat. I thought it was really strange that she would ask him these questions, knowing that I would see them when I got back. Anyway, the crucial point is she kept asking me what my last name was. Remember, Azula was very persistent, and she wouldn't stop asking a question even if you declined. So I find out that she goes on Facebook and searches every person with the same first name as I have. My name is fairly common, so there's a lot of people there with my first name. I couldn't believe it. She spent days trying to find my Facebook. I've never seen so much dedication. Red flags were definitely going off at this point. She eventually managed to find my Facebook and sent me a friend request. I declined it because I was very pissed that she was invading my privacy. She then started messaging me on Google Hangouts, asking about all my family members. My friends on Facebook weren't private for some reason. She literally wrote down a list of all of them, asking how each and every one of them were related to me. I started to get really scared at this point. I knew that I had a stalker on my hand, and I didn't know what to do. I blocked her on everything, and deleted everything on the net that had my real name on it. I officially went rogue. She eventually emailed me on another email of mine. Don't ask me how she found it. I have no idea. Perhaps it was on my Facebook before I deleted it. Anyway, she spams that email with countless messages every day. I blocked her and the email stopped. I didn't hear from her for about a month. Then one day, I accidentally deleted an important email. I went to the trash to recover it. In my trash bin, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of emails from her. I nearly soiled myself in fear. The last email was from that very same day, so in morbid curiosity, I decided to read some of them. What I found was nothing short of frightening. She told me that she thought there was something wrong with her, that she enjoyed and got off on the pain of others. She said that she knew where I lived and was going to fly over there and live with me. I was so scared at this point. I was worried that she was going to come and kill me. I deleted that email account, and I've tried to stay off the grid ever since.